our first word is advantage. Say it after me.
Advantage.
Advantage. The part of speech is a
noun.
Noun. Let's read together.
A condition, circumstance, or opportunity that puts someone or something in a more favorable position.
Favorable. Help me with that one.
Favorable.
Help me out.
Favorable.
What might it mean?
Like
Like it's better, right? Okay, so that's going to help us as we go to our next page here. So what's an example of an advantage? Before you turn and talk, I'm going to go ahead and describe one. So many years ago, my husband and I were moving from one state to another, and I had little tiny kids at the time, but I needed to take a job because he was going back to school and we wanted to eat, right? So I called a school where my aunt happened to be the head secretary, and I said, hey, are there any job openings? And she said, yes, we have a science opening for next year. And then she said, we don't usually do interviews over the phone, but I will tell my boss that you're worth interviewing, and we will interview you over the phone. That was great for me because I was living in Texas, and the school I wanted to work at was in Utah, and I did not want to have to fly from Texas to Utah to interview for a job. So they phone interviewed me. I got the job. I had an advantage because my aunt worked at the school, and she was able to make something happen to get me an interview for the job. She couldn't get me the job. I still had to go in and interview, but it was an advantage to have my aunt working there. Here's a few clues on our pictures up here. An example of an advantage is, use that phrasing so you're using the word advantage. Go ahead and turn and talk.
Like it could be
having connections, like if your parents.
Right.
bowling.
Like talk shop.
There you go. Like, so it's faster than you have to do.
It's like academic.
Good, I like that. Okay, I bet you didn't come up with that.
Yeah, let's go more.
Okay, yeah. Right, okay. All right, what do we got? Advantage.
The ones that everybody else has are super cute.
Absolutely.
The videos.
What is it? Who's got the advantage? Because they can run faster? There you go. There you go. I would say in those horror movies too, it's an advantage not to be the blonde woman because they always kill themselves. I don't know what that's about.
It's like when your legs like go like this.
Yeah. All right, let's go ahead and stop right there. Our third row here, these guys came up with a good one. Megan, can you share for us what we came up with there?
People who are faster.
Okay, in regards to what kind of activity? Sports. So being faster is an advantage in many sports, and they brought up soccer in particular as an example. What's the example I've got up here? Height, which might help us with basketball. Potentially, although if anybody was at the game the other night, they had a 6'4" freshman. It didn't do any good. Willamette still destroyed our opponents by like 20 points or something. It was great. Is anybody going up on the Rooter bus on Wednesday?
Oh yeah.
All right, there's somebody.
Pull up.
It'll be fun. It'll get back at like 1 in the morning, but it'll be very fun.
Well, you gotta get a ticket.
Okay, I clearly sidetracked us there.
He's gonna go.
Dominic, you had another one. Advantage. Okay, advantage.
Having a lot of money and going to college.
Okay, so potentially some big expense like going to college, buying a house, something like this. Money might help. As a mom that's soon to have 3 kids in college, I can tell you right now I'd love to have a big pile of money sitting somewhere to help me send those kids to college. Sam, give me one.
Being bow-legged. It actually shows that you're more explosive.
What
I
is
swear. That's a real thing.
It's like where your legs kind of bow out a
Yeah.
little bit. Okay, more
Mr. McEwen has
explosive
it.
like when you're jumping? What do you mean by that?
Yeah, I don't know. It's something with like it's like an advantage. Coach McEwen, he was an Olympic powerlifter and he's bow-legged. Fun fact.
You know, that's really
It's just
interesting
like
because
more-
I do a workout that's got a guy that's an Olympic skier, and his legs, I swear, they're like not straight. I'm like, this guy's a really good skier, but maybe that's what it is. Maybe he's explosive.
It's just more. I don't know. It's
Maybe
something
it's a
like
thing.
yeah.
Okay,
don't
all
know
right,
what
that
it
gives
is.
us some examples. Let's go ahead and write. So we've got advantage up here. So it's a condition that puts someone or something in a more favorable circumstance. Nobody said anything about my Star Wars meme on the other one. Obi-Wan, I have the high ground. Two of you are nodding.
I freaking get it.
My the house we live in now has this little landing on it, like there's stairs and then there's this little landing area. And when we moved into the house, my kids were young, they're like, oh, it's a sniper post. Because they like to do Nerf gun fights. And they always argue now over who gets to stand up at the top of the stairs and just pick everybody off that's below stairs. Because the high ground can be an advantage. Okay, now looking under facts and characteristics, this is where we want to tie it to what we've been studying in class. And it's that some genetic conditions or circumstances are actually better for survival than other ones. So if we think of that better for survival or survival of the fittest, what other biological concept could that be related to?
What?
Survival of the fittest. What might that tie in with?
Like genetics.
Oh, so genetics.
Having like a stronger like egg.
Oh yeah, maybe a stronger egg or sperm if it's got. What I'm kind of getting at here is like evolution, because evolution is where we're headed next as we think about survival of the fittest. And survival of the fittest is all based on having some kind of underlying genetic condition that's more helpful to us. Now the other thing to note about the word advantage is that it's a comparative term. We can only have an advantage over one thing or another if we're comparing it to another thing, right? Now our non-examples obviously disadvantage, but why would equality be a non-example? Because they're the same, right? The idea with advantage here is that one thing is elevated above another thing, right? Okay, nice. I'll give about 20 more seconds there. Again, emphasizing definitions and characteristics and giving me one example. If you don't quite get to the non-examples, that's less of an issue. All right. Our next word is lethal. Say it after me. Lethal. As part of speech is a adjective. Very nice. Let's read through our definition.
Something that is sufficient to cause death.
Okay, one more time. Let's see if we can get everybody to read with us.
Something that is sufficient to cause death.
Very nice, very nice. We either had more people participating or some were just louder. Okay, so what's something that could be described as lethal? Here's a few helpers up here, but you might already know something thinking of your own experience. So when you do your turn and talk, use your complete sentence. Read this sentence with me. So we're using the word again. An example of something lethal could be. Okay, turn and talk.
Or
What do you think of something lethal? Oh, like a car. Yeah. And not every time, but sometimes, yes. Like if somebody dies. Okay, good. I like that. What did you guys come up with here? Overdosing. Okay, so not in every case, but lethal. That sufficiency idea. If you have enough of it, or you, yes, I like that. Okay, good. All right, I've got a few good ideas here. Okay, quiet, please. Jordan, I overheard you say one. What have you got for us? Okay, something poisonous. Either it's like an organism that's been ingested or a dart. Very good. So something poisonous. And then up here we had a car accident can be lethal, not every time, but it can be. And then you guys had
overdosing and alcohol consumption.
Yeah, and again, it's this idea of sufficiency. It has to be in a sufficient enough amount to cause it. We're going to go to Matthew, then over here.
And alcohol can be deadly and also can light on fire.
Yes, very good.
And drinking, driving is kind of bad.
Yes, and then especially the alcohol consumption in conjunction with the driving. Very bad. And then it could be like a lethal car accident. Very good. One more. Diseases. Now, diseases are where we're going to kind of connect into the genetic stuff that we've been doing today. These are a bunch of diseases down here. We're thinking more in terms of like some genetic diseases. Also, does anybody else maybe?
Well, I can't see it.
Can't see it very good. Lethal Weapon. It's like from the 80s. I just don't know if there's any classic movie buffs here. Okay, now this up here, whatever it's pepper spray, and this guy, quiet please. It's t-shirt says non-lethal weapons instructor. So that
Oh.
seems like a pretty good job. Just get it.
Mean that it won't kill
It means it won't kill you, right? So there are times when you use like non-lethal force
You couldn't
for
pay
some
me enough
reason,
money.
right? It
Taser.
doesn't mean it's not painful, but it's not sufficient to kill you. Okay, so lethal. So again, something that is sufficient to cause death. Get a couple of examples there. Make sure that you choose the genetic disorders one, because that's going to tie to what we've been doing, but then you can pick another one based on something that you came up with on your own. Now, some alleles can be considered a lethal allele. Now, if it's a recessive allele, how many copies do you need to have the disease?
Both.
Two, both. Yes, very good. And lethal alleles can be dominant or recessive. We're going to look at one lethal allele today that's dominant, but it doesn't actually impact you. It doesn't start killing you until you're like in your 40s. By the time you're in your 40s, you may have already done what with your genetics?
And like vaccination.
Say it loud.
Spread them.
Spread them. You may have already passed on your genetics to the next generation. So even though it's a lethal allele, you still pass it on because it doesn't kill you before you pass it on. So non-examples would be healthy or safe, or obviously non-lethal, right? Once you're finished writing, flip to the back so that I know we're ready to move on. We're only going to do 3 words today. Some of you like to cross out that 4th word if we don't do it, to remind yourself that you didn't miss one, but you got them all. Thanks for being patient while others finish up. Do about 15 more seconds here. All right, our 3rd word today is pedigree chart. Say it after me.
Pedigree chart.
It is a
Noun.
This is a chart that,
That
yeah,
vi-
sorry, I should have had us, okay, let's go together.
A chart that visually represents a family of organisms' genetic history.
So this is where we're going to start making a real practical application of everything we've been doing so far. Okay, this is pedigree chart. You may have seen one before or you might not have. But what we're going to do here is, because this is a new concept for us, rather than do a turn and talk about something you might already know, what we're going to do is we're going to look at the chart, we're going to study it, and our question is, what do you notice about the pedigree chart at the side? So read our sentence frame with me. I noticed blank about the pedigree chart. So make sure you're trying to use the word pedigree chart in your turn and talk with your partners. Study this for a few seconds and then do a turn and talk. See what you can come up with.
So mine is different shade.
I noticed that.
Yeah, it looks like a hierarchy.
About the pedigree chart, so
Bro,
it's
you
like,
can't-
like
you're not
the-
even letting me say
and then
anything.
Oh,
there's
no.
people hiding it. It's like a big pyramid.
Okay, there's more males than females. What do you notice about males?
A lot more females than carriers.
And
More females than carriers.
It's
More males, right?
and there's like, oh, like in their family there's more normal males that are
Most are more non-carriers.
Okay, interesting. Okay, let's do some of our notices. What do we notice about the pedigree chart? What have you got for us?
Males are represented by squares and females are represented by circles.
Okay, so at a very basic level, we notice a difference in males and females. Any pedigree chart we look at is going to be the same pattern. Female circles, male squares. Yes?
There's no carrier.
There are no carrier males. So thinking back to what we covered last class, disorder. It is recessive. It's a genetic disorder.
On the
It's very.
X.
It's going to be on the X chromosome. It's a sex-linked. Very nice. Very nice. We had a comment here.
There's only one hemophiliac female.
There's only one hemophiliac female, and that's going to go along with something. Heaven, go ahead. What did you notice about the carriers? You said something about
Only the female carrier?
only the females are
Totally.
carriers, right? We've only got one hemophiliac female. So who's more likely to have it, males or females?
Males.
Males, which would also be consistent with what we talked about with sex-linked traits last time. We're going to get into a whole bunch of practice with pedigree charts today. But in the meantime, before we start that, I'm going to have you go ahead and finish our last little Freyer model vocab sheet there. So again, a pedigree chart is a chart that visually represents a family's genetic history. This little image over here, do your best. It's some circles and squares. I know it's not going to look perfect. That's okay. We're not going to label it or anything. We're just getting an overall idea of what a pedigree chart looks like. Besides helping us track a disease, a pedigree chart can also show relationships between individuals. We're going to call the Punnett square a non-example. We've been doing tons of Punnett squares. Punnett squares predict what we think is going to happen. Pedigree charts actually tell us what did happen. No prediction needed. And we'll kind of compare and contrast those things as we get working today. Again, we've only got 3 words today.
Can we explain that thing with the Punnett squares?
What about the Punnett squares, Matthew?
I haven't finished yet. Oh, there is like hospitals for
Good, good, good. Okay. And then we can go ahead and shut off the recording.